San Mateo County has such a high quality of living around here. We're close to so many amazing outdoor options if you're into nature and being very active. We have incredible schools. We have so many high-paying jobs. It's just a really robust ecosystem where there's so many great things about living in San Mateo County. Now, why wouldn't you want to live in San Mateo County? Let's dive in. The first reason, and perhaps the most important, is the money. It is just super expensive to live in San Mateo County. Now, you might be familiar with affordable housing or read about it in the news. What does affordable housing mean? A lot of it relates to what's called BMR, below market rate housing, which is a requirement for developers when they're building new construction, particularly like condo buildings or apartment buildings, that a certain percentage of the units are set aside for those making a certain amount of income. Unfortunately, according to a recent article I read in the San Mateo Daily Journal, there's just not really any of those that are available at the moment, and the ones that are, they're already occupied. So we do have a big issue in the county for people who maybe you don't have some big tech job or biotech job or finance job. I mean, it's just expensive to live here, and a one-bedroom apartment could be $2,500 a month, which is not affordable for the barista at Starbucks, perhaps. So it's just so expensive to live around here. When we talk about what are prices like, San Mateo County has the highest median home price of any of the counties in the Bay Area out of 9 counties. The median home price for a 2-bedroom condo in the last year, so in 2023, was a little under $900,000. The median home price last year in San Mateo County was $1.8 million, but the average home price was $2.4 million. Why are the median and average so far off? It's just because there's so many homes at the higher end of the price range. Like right now, we're recording this in Hillsboro, which has an average price closer to $6 million. Most lots here are about half an acre. And so there's just so many different properties that can kind of skew the average a little bit higher. And why are these prices so high? I could do several videos on why prices are so high, but a lot of it comes down to job growth. I remember seeing something recently that in the last 5 years, San Mateo County has created about 75,000 jobs, but only about 5,000 new housing units. So when you do the math and you have an imbalance that's that significant, of course, you're going to see a lot of pressure upwards, not only on home prices, but also rental prices. And we kind of see that trickle down. I remember seeing that a restaurant in Burlingame, after a $15 million renovation, they posted on Instagram that they're having trouble finding the 80 people that they needed to open the restaurant. And so therefore they had to delay the launch. So that's an extreme example, but you see many help wanted signs in restaurants in the downtown areas just because it's so expensive to live around here. And that's a real problem. That's not something that I'm proud of. Now, if you think about construction costs in the Bay Area, in 2019, the average hourly wage for a construction worker in the Bay Area was $105 per person per hour, which is super high. Sure, it's fair because that's where the market is, but it's very expensive. In fact, it was the highest of any country in the world in 2019. In 2021, Hong Kong and Tokyo surpassed the Bay Area for highest price for an hourly wage for construction. But if you're wanting to do a project, the labor is a huge driver. So a new construction cost could be anywhere from $600 per square foot to up to $1,000 per square foot, whereas you could go several hours away from here in Sacramento and your price per square foot cost is going to be way less. So for example, if you want to remodel a bathroom, I'll tell clients you could easily expect to spend $25,000 to $40,000. A new kitchen could be $50,000 to $100,000. Landscaping in your backyard, that could be $15,000, $20,000 up to $100,000 plus for just something on a 5,000 square foot lot. So it's very expensive to build around here. And because we have such limited supply, we actually have less supply here than even New York City. In New York City, even though it's limited land, you can go straight up, whereas here we're kind of limited for a number of different reasons on height. So you do see in some of the downtowns, like downtown Burlingame, there's a few tall buildings. Downtown San Mateo, there's a few big ones. Palo Alto, Redwood City. So there's more of that that's coming in with some of the state housing and office mandates, but it is what it is. So having kids in San Mateo County is expensive. Now, having kids anywhere, it's always an additional cost, and it's something that if you're a parent and you're watching this, you know it's absolutely worth it. But just to give you an idea, of course, there's 2 ways you can have a kid's birthday party. One is you invite everyone over to your house or condo or apartment, and you have a birthday cake that you can buy from Safeway, and that's fantastic. Or if you want to do something with a little bit more adventure, you could do laser tag. You could take your kids to Curiosity, to the local museum. You could do virtual reality. You could take them to Dave & Buster's. You can go to Safari Run or Rock and Jump or K1 Speedway, which we used to have in Burlingame. There's so many different ways that you can do birthday parties, but they're all really expensive. If you want to just have 10 or 15 kids, you could be looking at anywhere from $400 to $1,000 for a kid's birthday party. And I see many people doing that, and it's not something that's necessary to do. But I would imagine other parts of the country, it's probably not as expensive to do something as basic as that because they have people working there and they're getting paid typically $20 to $30 per hour perhaps. And then you have your food costs. And if you want to have something that's not the lowest quality food, it's just pricey. So it is what it is. size. If you're wanting to put your kids in preschool, which many people do, kind of when your kids are maybe around 2 years old, you could expect it for a private preschool to be spending anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 a year, which in my opinion is very, very expensive. And that's just kind of what it costs. I mean, these preschools, they're not profit centers. They're here just to provide a safe and comfortable environment for kids to learn throughout the day and interact and have a lot of like social, emotional growth. And that's just kind of what it costs to operate a preschool around here. So it's just a lot more expensive here. All right, so the one thing that is really bad in the peninsula is the traffic. No one has anything positive to say about driving around here, aside from we're grateful that the roads overall are pretty good. So I did see a study that in 2022 for 101 freeway entering San Jose, which is a little south of San Mateo County, but still illustrative, there were about 75,000 cars a day that were just entering San Jose. And if you look from here going up to San Francisco, I'm sure like it's even worse. So you do get a lot of traffic around here. If you live a little bit more south in the county, and you're heading north for work to say South San Francisco, if you work in biotech or if you work in San Francisco, if you're doing that at rush hour, that's probably going to be a miserable experience. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but like if you live in Belmont, San Carlos, and you need to leave at 8 a.m. every day, that's not gonna be fun. I once represented a family where the husband was a cardiologist working in San Francisco and they bought in Belmont. You know, he needs to leave, 7 a.m. or earlier so he could get up to the city in time. Again, not a big deal since that's kind of when they're doing surgery, but in general, it's not as smooth. Some of the big choke points for traffic here are 101 and 92, 101 in Hillsdale Boulevard, typically in both directions, and then also 101 in Millbrae, kind of right by San Francisco Airport. It typically slows down there. So as long as you're not driving like 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. or later in the day, if you're wanting to do something like off hours, that's not going to be a big deal. But otherwise, it's something you definitely want to keep in mind where your traffic time could, like if you're going from Burlingame to San Francisco, if there's no traffic, that could be 20, 25 minutes. If there is traffic, that could be an hour. So it's not the end of the world, but in the last few years, the Bay Area has ranked as having the 8th worst traffic of any metro area in the whole country. So if you move here, welcome to the traffic club. All right, so I just chatted with you about traffic in the Bay Area and how that's not so good. When I think about public transportation, we do have some really good options. However, they're not like many other major metro cities. So we do have Caltrain, which is where I am now, that goes from San Francisco all the way down to San Jose. It stops in every city. Some cities it has the baby bullet where it skips over other towns. So it just can get you there a little bit faster, but that only goes north-south. And then we have Samtrans, which is our county bus service. That pretty much just goes up and down the El Camino corridor, which is really helpful, but it doesn't kind of sprinkle out to some of the side streets. So you might have to walk a little bit there. Ridership is way down over the last few years due to COVID, but it's definitely on the way back up when you look at some of the data. And then we also have BART, which stands for Bay Area Rapid Transit. It's kind of a combination of a light rail and a subway, but it's mostly above ground. The southernmost station though is in Millbrae, so it doesn't really, fortunately, extend any farther south to cover most of San Mateo County, but it is convenient if you want to go, like some people will take Caltrain up to BART and then BART up to San Francisco or out to the East Bay. But most people who live in San Mateo County, they're not commuting to the East Bay, they're just going up to San Francisco. So that's kind of convenient, but again, I wish it came a lot more south. Some of the trains are a little bit older feel. Caltrain has been upgraded to some degree, but most of the public transportation here doesn't necessarily feel as new. But for many people, that's the only way to get around. And it's obviously a really important and vital part of our local ecosystem. It's just not as built out as it is in many other cities. All right, so another reason you might not want to move to San Mateo County is because of the weather. Now, I debated whether I should include this in the video or not, no pun intended. However, it's a little subjective. I think the weather here is really nice year-round. If you're into four-season weather, we absolutely do not have that in San Mateo County, pretty much in the Bay Area, which you probably already know. However, in the wintertime, temperatures get into the lows of like high 30s, low 40s overnight, so sometimes I'll wake up and have frost in my car, but that's not all the time. And then the highs kind of get into the 60s. And then in the warmer months in the summer, we kind of have lows in the 50s, but it could get up to the 90s on the high side, like in the 70s. But for context, what percentage of people in San Mateo County have air conditioning? If I had to guess, I would say not more than 10 or 15%. Now, growing up in Burlingame, this wasn't something that we had, but now at my house, we do have heat pumps and air conditioning because it's just sometimes a lot more comfortable when the temps get up to the 90s. But if you're looking for the warmth, don't come to San Mateo County. Go to the East Bay where you can buy a beautiful home that's newer, that's in better condition with a probably more modern floor plan on a bigger lot for less money. So everything's gonna be better out there. Of course, you're in San Mateo County though, get access to the jobs, an amazing culinary scene. Like there's so many good things about living here, but let's just be honest, it's super expensive. And if you go to the South Bay, you might not spend less on housing, but the weather there is gonna be another 10 to 15 degrees probably warmer than it is in northern part of San Mateo County.